Yeah, Guerrilla Marketing, E-Myth, Revisited. Those are two books that I read early on that really helped. The worst thing you can do is hire on somebody and just expect them to do all the work and you never have to touch client acquisition again. It's your business. I mean, client acquisition is why we are in business for ourselves, is because we want to choose the clients we want to work with.
Okay, so our listeners, our watchers, our subscribers, they always, love, what tool. So what tool do you use for documentation and process docs for your team? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of My First Million. Allison Felber, editor-in-chief at MSP Success. And I've got an old friend here with me today, Nathan Whittacre. I was trying to think back about how long I've known you. And I think we might be getting close to decades. I don't know, a decade, maybe at least 5 years. I've known Nathan. Definitely, spent some time getting to chat with him. And, like we do on My First Million, he's going to be kind of pulling the curtain back, sharing, what he had done, what he's done to really make it past that first $1 million mark. And we were kind of chit-chatting before we started and hit record. And he's got a really interesting story for those of you who are already past that $1 million mark and maybe looking to make some big growth steps, whether it's organically or by acquisition, or you want to enter into a new market. Nathan's going to be your guy to get some secrets, the secret sauce for maybe how he's done that. So we're going to take a little bit of a tangent on this My First Million, but we are going to start with those early days. So Nathan, if you could just kind of take a minute, introduce yourself to our audience, tell them about you, your business, revenue, locations, all that fun stuff.
Sure. It's great to be here, Allison. I really am grateful for the opportunity to be on the podcast and share a little bit about myself and Stimulus Technologies and how we started. So we started the company 30 years ago. So we're celebrating 30 years in this year. I was working for a small computer shop called Image Computers while in high school. I'd go there a few hours after school every day, building computers, helping fix things, mostly just hardware, doing some shipping and receiving. And the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, the owner, who was a professor at the local university, had decided that he wanted to close down the computer shop. Dell was entering the market. There was a Best Buy that opened down the street. And he realized that building computers was just not as profitable as it once was. And so I went home to my brother and my dad and said, I think we could do this. I was a teenager. I kind of knew everything at that point in my life, right? As teenagers do. And I thought we could start our own computer store or computer shop. My dad had owned a couple of businesses, not related to technology, but he had experience operating businesses. And so I convinced my family at 17 years old that it was a good idea to start our own computer shop. And so we started in my brother's garage. We bought some of the inventory off of my former boss.
All the best businesses start in garages, right?
They should, yeah. They do. There's a lot. We took a couple of clients with us also, and we were just building computers, helping friends and family with technology as my brother and I put ourselves through college. So I, eventually, graduated high school. It was kind of funny. I was the kid with the beeper and cell phone in high school. Not because I was popular. I was a nerd, but because clients got had to get a hold of us. And, it's the first few years was more of a hobby. We were going to school full time. Both my brother and I had other jobs, and we were doing our best to make something of the company. And so that's how we started. Eventually, I earned my bachelor's and master's degree in computer science. And we did some software development in the company, but it was mostly doing computer repair, computer build, and helping businesses with their technology needs. And, initially started out as most of us in those days as break fix, just building computers. And it was fun. It was,
Yeah.
it was enjoyable, but tough.
And was brother and dad still involved post-college?
So my brother, I actually left the business for about 2 years to serve a mission for my church from 1998 to 2000. And during that time, one of our clients, which was a nuclear pharmacy, had contracted with my brother to write a piece of software. And while I was on my mission, that software was doing well. They were in development of it. And I came home, and my brother had devoted most of his time for the first couple of years while I was home to, getting that software working and selling it to our clients. And eventually we formed another company to manage and sell that software. And so my brother left in 2002 and went off to run that company. So I was left to run Stimulus at that time. My dad never was fully involved in the company. He was mostly a not so silent partner, but he would help us with the business side of things, sales, ideas. He worked a little bit in the company for about 2 years during the recession to help us get our sales off the ground during that difficult time of 2008 to 2012. But from 2002 on to today, I've been the sole owner and operator of the company.
Okay. Yeah. And so tell us a little about, we'll come back to kind of the early days, of Stimulus, but tell us where Stimulus is at right now.
So we've grown a lot since those days in my brother's garage. We operate in 5 states and we have 6 locations in those 5 states. We have about 70 employees across those locations. We do about $12 million in top line revenue. I actually have expanded. We're a bit unique as most providers are in this space. We all have some uniqueness to us, but we have a side of our business that we are also an internet service provider. We operate our own internet networks, mostly using fixed wireless, but some fiber and cable plants in our service areas. And so that's a big part of our business too, is offering a complete solution to our clients. So not just IT services, but IT, cybersecurity, voice over IP, and internet service. And we're the operator of all of those. So we're not reselling VoIP or reselling internet. We are the provider. So that's been a unique challenge for us to have distinct divisions of our company too. But it's also been a huge growth area for us on the internet services side. And we're really excited about some huge opportunities that we've won to build out fiber in these rural communities where we serve using federal grant dollars. So we've run one multi-million-dollar grants to build out fiber in these areas, and we'll continue expanding our network. So it's been a big project for us over the last couple of years, is that expansion growth through the internet services side. Yeah, it's very exciting. Very stressful, but very exciting.
Well, a lot of times stress equals money, right?
Hopefully. I still have my hair and it's not gray yet, so I think I'm doing all right.
Okay. So let's go back to kind of some of those early days, 17, technically when, you started working, and then of course in college, and then, coming out of college and starting Stimulus. So how many years did it take you to go from zero to getting to that $1 million mark in revenue?
It was a little over 10 years. Like I said, the first 5 years were mostly a hobby. My brother and I were barely taking any paychecks out of the company for the first couple of years. We both had other jobs. So, I discount, those years until about 2000, when we really made a push for growth of the company. And I think our first million was somewhere in 2005, 2006. So it took a little over 10 years to get to that point.
Okay. I think that's encouraging for a lot of people, who start out in the business, and maybe it's not a hobby, maybe it is a side gig, that they're doing at the same time that they're doing their, normal 9 to 5. And it's encouraging to hear, it does take time, and that's normal and that's okay. And to have, the right expectations, on my first million on this podcast, we don't talk to people, I got to my first million in a year. It takes some work and some grind and some hustle at the beginning, right?
Well, it takes a lot of scary decisions. It's like you were saying, we both had other jobs. It was kind of a side gig for us to start. I think that happens with a lot of people. And that decision to leave your primary income to do your business full time is one of the hardest decisions. The second hardest decision is when to hire your first employee. And, realizing that you're the limiter of the growth of your company and to bring on other team members to accelerate that growth. And that's not just paying yourself, but being responsible for other people is another scary decision.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about those two scary decisions and your experience and maybe some of your advice. So the first being that, that first day where you're not receiving a paycheck anymore. What led you to that decision? What was that like? And what kind of ultimately made you decide that you wanted to own your own business and get out under the security blanket, of a paycheck and a 401k?
Well, I was a teenager, so my first jobs were working at Blockbuster and Sega Arcade, both long since gone. So, I realized, I guess for me that young, I didn't know any different, and I didn't. The lucky thing for me also is I didn't have a lot of financial responsibilities. And so it was much easier for me to take that leap to, make $10,000 a year is all, or, make a few dollars on the side because I just didn't have a lot of responsibilities. It was a lot harder for my brother, who's 7 years older than me, had a family at the time, a mortgage, and it was a lot harder for him. And I know that was a big challenge for him to decide to do the work full time. And that happened when I left, that, half of the effort was gone with me leaving. And so my brother made the decision to, come and work the business full time. And I know on his family, that was extremely stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a challenge. And then honestly, I didn't see a lot of it because I was in Peru and on my mission. So I came back and, I never worked for anybody else after I came back to my mission. And it's definitely a tough decision. Those challenges of barely, making that decision to cut yourself a paycheck versus, buying more equipment or hiring another employee, or often, as a knowing that if I hire a staff member or a team member, I might not be able to take a paycheck anymore, or I'll have to do a big reduction to how much I'm paying myself. Those were tough decisions, and it takes a lot of being willing to take risks to get past that mark.
Yeah. So who, what role and when, was your first hire?
So we hired some technical staff initially to help us, with clients, building computers, but they were mostly part-time. My first full-time employee was a friend of mine who came on. He left a gaming company to come over and work for us. And that was scary to hire a friend too, because, it could ruin a friendship. But I'm glad to say that we're still friends 25 years later. So, but it definitely
it
was
worked out okay.
Yeah, it worked out okay. And he worked for me for about 10 years before moving out of state for family reasons. But we hired some technical staff. We had a programmer on staff too that was part-time. But we realized, I think early on, that we needed to focus on sales. And we hired our first salesperson pretty early on, I think about 6 years after starting the business. But really, I take it like 1 or 2 years after, really making that our primary effort. So we realized, sales was an important part of it. We couldn't grow the business unless we were doing that work just as much as we were doing the technical work.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes we hear horror stories about hiring your first salesperson, and sometimes we hear amazing success stories about hiring that first salesperson because now you have someone out there hunting. What was your experience? And there's in the middle too.
Yeah. So our first salesperson, she didn't work out, if I remember right. She was only with us a short amount of time. And then we were referred a younger guy that was a friend of a friend that came to work for us. And he did really well. He was very energetic, understood the technology, understood the things we were doing. And at the time, we were selling to a lot of doctors' offices. And so he was a handsome young man that was going in, and all the office staff of these doctors' offices loved Jed. And,
Play to your audience. Play to your audience.
Yeah, it worked. It worked really well. So he did excellent, getting us a lot of medical practices. So I think that helped a lot, just to know the audience. And it was funny, speaking of which, when he left the company, he moved out of state also. I guess I send people out of state that work well for us.
Okay, what state are you in right now for our listeners?
We're in Nevada.
Okay. So everybody gets a picture. It's hot.
Yeah. So both were for family, get closer to their families. But so we hired on a woman who was in the medical field and, understood it very well. And she walked into one of our really good clients, and the office manager literally looked her up and down and said, "I'm not dealing with you," and turned away. And
where's Jed?
Called me up and said, "Where's Jed?" It was seriously, that's what threatened by this woman. It was hilarious. So knowing your audience is really important.
Yeah. Find your Jed. Yeah. So what piece of advice would you give, to another MSP CEO who's looking to make either that first salesperson hire, or maybe they've been burned and now looking to hire, another salesperson? What advice would you give them?
I think it's really important, especially when you're small, but I don't know if it's even when you're small. No matter what size you are, you can't just hand off sales to somebody and step out of it. I think the problem that we have is technical owners of the businesses. I have a tech background. We are uncomfortable with sales, and it's one of our innate desires to hand it off to somebody and never think about it again. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. So no matter what size of company you are, whether you're $100,000 a year or $10 million a year, the CEO still needs to be involved in sales and marketing and be intimately involved with that side of it. So the worst thing you can do is hire on somebody and just expect them to do all the work, and you never have to touch client acquisition again. It's your business. Client acquisition is why we are in business for ourselves, is because we want to choose the clients we want to work with and how we work with them. And you have to be involved with sales to do that. So I think it's great that you're listening to this podcast. If you are, obviously have some relationship with TMT and their team. Just learning about sales and marketing is an essential part of the business, and you can't grow without having marketing, having sales. You can't just be the greatest technician ever if nobody knows about you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next is, people, they want to just hand it off once they hire a salesperson because they assume that salesperson knows what they're doing, but you've got to know, what good sales looks like and what good marketing looks like. And so for, the owners out there who don't consider themselves, good at sales or good at marketing, you mentioned TMT, but are there other resources that helped you, whether it was a book or a mentor or a course or anything to help you kind of understand sales and marketing better so that you could manage that person and not just throw them out there and expect them to succeed?
Well, if you're watching on video, I'm going to turn my chair for a second. So that's, I've read a lot. Some of the first books I read, Guerrilla Marketing.
For the listener, he's got a whole bookcase in the back. If you're not watching for the listener, it's filled with books.
So be an avid reader. But yeah, Guerrilla Marketing, E-Myth, Revisited. Those are two books that I read early on that really helped just understand positioning of a small business. I think that's really important, is to understand where you lie and where you could do really good work. We're not going to be the Dells of the world as IT providers. We're not going to be these huge behemoths, but there's a very important niche for us, whether we're a small 1 or 2 man shop or 70, 100 employees. But really understand your positioning, understand what makes you unique and different. And that's a decision that the business owner has to do, and teach the sales and marketing people, if you have staff, what it means to do business with your company. It was very interesting. I learned this lesson. I hired on another salesperson, and salespeople are often hard to keep, and you make good hires, bad hires. I attended a networking breakfast or lunch with one of our new hires, kind of introducing them to the group. And that new hire really just did not understand our business. And somebody asked her, well, what do you do? And she went off about SEO marketing and web design and all this stuff. And I pulled her aside afterwards. I let her talk. I didn't cut her off. And I pulled her aside. I said, okay, I think we need to have a talk about what we really do, because we don't do any of that you just told that. So, and I think I've had salespeople that want to lead the company in a direction that I don't want to go as an owner. And so I think it's really important that, again, you set the strategy, set the vision for the company and where you're going. And you have to inform the rest of your team on why that's where you're going and how we're going to get there. And sales is such a huge part of it, setting that direction of who the ideal clients are, who we want to do business with, how you find them, and how we sell to them.
Yeah. I don't think I've told this story on this podcast before, but before I had like an official interview. So I used to work at an IT company, in Southern California before, moving out to Nashville to first work with Robin at TMT and now at MSP Success. But, it was an informal conversation at like a restaurant with a friend of a friend who was looking to hire someone in marketing for, his IT company. And, to that point, I had zero experience with technology. I was working at, a PR firm for aftermarket auto parts. I didn't know technology. And so he's trying to explain what they do. And he's like, you're like the servers that are in the office. And in my head, I'm like, server. I was like, okay, I was a server in college. I could do this. So then I had to go home before like my first official interview and, learn all I can about technology. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what a server is.
Grab the IT for Dummies book and you're good to go, right?
Yes. I got the job.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so let's go. Let's kind of jump to the time in your life and in your business's life where you were, really, really getting close to that $1 million mark. And that's a hard hurdle to get over. What were some of the things, 1, 2, or maybe it's more than that, but what were some of the things that you feel like really moved the needle for you to get you over that $1 million mark?
Well, we talked about team. I think having a team to get us there was really important. One of the hard things when you're early on in your business, for us, we were throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck. So we were, we started the internet services side of our business early on. We were doing VoIP, software programming, building computers, IT management, all of the above. And it felt like we were rather ragged, in just jumping from thing to thing to thing, just trying to make $1 on whatever we were doing. And I think what really helped us is we shed some of those things that were not profitable for us, that were consuming a lot of our time. So we kept the things that made sense, but we shed software development, which was ironic because that's what I went to school for. So, realized that even though we were getting projects, it wasn't making us a lot of money. And it was consuming a lot of my time because I was the lead programmer. So, shedding the things that weren't profitable for us, that were distractions. And then I remember early on, we really focused, and we still do focus a lot of time on repetitive systems. And it was in those years, 2005 to 2008, that we were trying to figure out how to do what we call MSP services now, but convert our company into a recurring revenue service business. And it was this was before any of the tools that we use now were present. But we set up a backup server in our little mini data center that we had. We had a WSUS server to do Windows updates. We were trying to automate a lot of the work that we were doing and kind of piece together this managed services model for our clients. And I think shifting from, we had to, go out and hunt for our food every day by doing break fix work to putting systems in that, we were making money without having to do immediate work for us. That really shifted the tone to the company. So, starting today, there's so many tools out there to just do this. But 20 years ago, I'm talking 2005, 2006, as we were starting down this journey, it was really hard. So I kind of, in some aspect, I wish I would have started today because it would be a lot easier. But the challenges of running IT today, there's so much more we have to do. Before it was, okay, we got backups, we have updates, we have antivirus, and, that's all we need. Now it's, we recently did up our list of every tool and everything that we have to do in our mix to provide good services. And it's like the list was 72 items on a spreadsheet.
Wow.
And it's just
Wow.
overwhelming,
Yeah.
from a company standpoint. So, in some aspects it was easier, but it was, inventing the wheel back then. And we were really grateful when RMM tools came out, when, PSAs were available, that we were able to, really buy these tools off the shelf. Even though they weren't great at the time, it really helped us take our thoughts about managed IT services that we didn't really know what that was at the time, and turn it into something that we could, automate the work and not have to be hands-on on everything that we were doing.
Mm-hmm. So, your list of 72, is there something, I guess I'll kind of ask two parts. Is there, something that you've added to your solution stack that has been incredibly profitable? And then is there something that's in your stack that you're just personally jazzed about, that you can sell without even trying to sell because you get excited, talking about it?
So the thing that's at the top of the list still is the right people. And that's the hardest part of running a technology company, is bringing in the right team members. And it is the most expensive part of that stack too. So, you add up everything else below the people, and it's never going to be more than the people that are involved. And so getting your team right, I think, is one of the most essential parts to the work. So we, early on, I brought, around that same time, one of our clients, which was a CPA firm, had a small in-house IT shop. They were selling IT services at the time, and they wanted to shed that side of their business. And so we brought on their manager, and he's been an integral part of the growth of the company, really around the technical side and building up this automation, building up all this work. And so having the right team and making sure that they are all trained and rowing in the right direction is really the first and most essential part of getting technology right. Because in the end, all that tech stuff we do is really to serve people, and it's people serving people. We might use tools and technology to do it, but in the end, it's people that we serve, and we serve them with people. So I'm jazzed about that. I think we have a great team, and we're constantly evolving our team and trying to improve. That's probably the biggest thing I'm jazzed about is the team that we build. From a technology standpoint, there's actually quite a few things. We've recently implemented password managers for all our clients. That's been a big change. Identity management is something that we talk about a lot from a threat standpoint, is improving identity management. But it's really, just looking what the threats are today and how we can help our clients solve those. But again, a lot of it comes down to the team that we have to train our clients on the use of those tools and how they improve their workflow without disrupting the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, most MSPs have access to the same tools. And so you're right, it's the services that you layer on top that make you different or better, or unfortunately, sometimes, not as good. And so what do you feel like your team does, that makes, you talk about how amazing your team is. I know some of the people on your team, they are amazing. What do you think, like, what's your value proposition to your clients about your services and what your team can offer?
Well, I'll pop under the hood for a second on it.
Okay. We always like
You
to look under the hood, peel back the curtain, open the kimono.
There's no magic. I'll tell you that you don't get under the hood and see this bubbling cauldron of magic. We spend a lot of time ensuring that we do the work exactly the same every time. And so we have very highly documented processes that our team members follow, and we have structure in place to ensure that everybody's following those. And it's been, multiple iterations over, 30 years of what that looks like, and ebbs and flows, some successes, a lot of failures. But that's been the biggest thing for us, is to ensure that if I do the work, or if one of my managers does the work, or the newly hired help desk technician does the work, it's generally done the same way and the process is followed. Because I'm not doing it every day, I'm probably the least one to follow the processes, and that's why I don't do any of the technical work anymore.
But they're there. The process doc is there if you need it.
I know. I can look it up, and I'll get corrected if I don't follow it. But that's really what's under the hood. You look at assembly lines and factory floors, and they work well because there's a process they follow. It's when somebody's the magician and, I'm going to do it better, that things fall apart. So I think that's the hardest thing for an owner that's trying to transition to a little bit larger company to do, is say, nobody does it the same way I do. And it's true, everybody inside the company is unique in a certain way, but you need to set up a process in a way that generally anybody can follow and anybody can get the work done. And the amazing thing about that is you don't have to hire, top level talent all the time and pay a lot of money for that, because you can train the staff to do the work in the same manner you would. Now you have to hire people that fit your culture, that believe the direction you're going is the right direction, that really understand technology, that can communicate with people. That's all important. But in the end, your secret sauce of the business is the way that you do business every day. And you want to make sure you do it the same way every day. And that's been the hardest part for me, is developing those processes and really defining it. And I think in the last 5 years, we took a really good look again at the way that we do business, and we tore it all apart and rebuilt it from scratch. And it's been really good over the last 5 years. What has happened though is we've lost clients because of it, that don't want to follow it. We have clients that, want to just call their IT guy, at 6 o'clock at night and get an answer, or 6 o'clock in the morning and get the answer. And they want to just call one person. And, when you grow to a certain size, as we have, I can't have clients calling me, and asking me to fix their printer. Some do still try.
Yeah.
But that's something that, as you scale 5, 10, 15, 20 employees, you have to back, as the owner, you have to back away from the technical work and work on, the overall leadership of the company.
Yeah. Okay. So our listeners, our watchers, our subscribers, they always, love, what tool. So what tool do you use for documentation and process docs for your team?
We are simple. We use Word and Excel and store them in SharePoint.
Okay.
Yeah. And Visio, we use Visio to do the workflows. But I am of the belief that you start with pen and paper or whiteboard and make it work with, handwritten processes. Once that works, then you can start putting them in electronic methods. But I think if you spend the time trying to figure out what system and what tool and all that, then you lose the essence of the work that you're doing. I do have a funny story. So we've been working on this forever. And like I said, there's been a lot of iterations, but we hired somebody inside the company to help us put this stuff together. Actually, we hired Taryn into our company because we wanted to give her everything that nobody else wanted to do. So it was like our management team was like, okay, what are the things we don't like doing? We made a list and we said, we're going to hire a person to do that. So poor Taryn, she comes in and gets everything that nobody wants to do. And she still works for us like 15 years later. It's kind of amazing. So, if you want to meet her, we just recently did a podcast kind of reflecting on our 30 years. And
okay, we'll drop it in the show notes.
Yeah. So funny story. So came in, we were trying to develop this procedure manual. And at the time we were printing them out to give to new employees. And so she worked tirelessly, interviewing everybody inside the company, documenting this, doing all the screenshots of all the work, how to enter tickets in the PSA, how to, do all these processes we did inside the company. And she's like, okay, I'm ready to print this out and put it into binders. What do we call it? And we used to have this joke that every time a new employee came in to work for us, everything was passed down verbally to the next employee. And so it was kind of like, ancient times where you'd sing the song to, in the tribe to teach the next generation what they should do. So we called it our tribal songbook. And so I think there's still folders in our shared drive that have that original tribal songbook in there. But so,
and new hires are very curious, like, what is this? What am I getting myself into?
There's chants and signs that we have to do and funny dances.
That's great. I love it. Well, hey, you're at 12 million, so it works. You don't have to have this crazy set of tools that just hold you back while you're trying to figure out which one to use for that. Just doing it. You're at 12 million. Yes. So I want to kind of, take a quick little short tangent here for, maybe some of our listeners who are past that $1 million mark and now are looking to really scale to your size at 12 million and, different locations. And, I know it's been a combination of, organic growth and acquisitions, but can you talk a little bit about your growth strategy, since then and what enabled you to really get past that $10 million mark to now the 12 million?
Yeah, so we were sitting right around $2 or $3 million when we started in the process of acquisitions. Our first two were very small. One was a solo entrepreneur that I had known for years. We had kind of exchanged some clients, done some work together with each other, friendly competitors. And he wanted to join a larger business, didn't really want to build it himself. And so he joined us in 2016 and is still with us, an integral part of our management team. And then we acquired another small MSP. They were sub $1 million at the time. And that kind of led the idea of we can grow through acquisition. So that kind of pole vaulted us above $3 million. And then we had a client of ours that had multiple offices in Las Vegas and also had their corporate headquarters in Southern California. And I was doing most of the work in Southern California. I would get up here at like 3 a.m, drive down to our client's office, spend the day there, and drive home and get home about 3 o'clock the next morning. And they were very long days. I don't miss that. But it was a way that, in my mind, I could cheaply service that client remotely. But we were doing enough work down there and had actually been referred to a couple of other businesses in Southern California that we thought it was time to open up an office down there. And so we formed a new entity to operate in Southern California and transitioned the clients that were down there over to this new subsidiary of our company and, got an office. And I was the first, rather than going down there one day at a time, now I'm going down there like 3 or 4 days at a time. I was it was kind of like starting over from the beginning. I was doing sales, I was doing marketing, I was doing the technical work. But it was fun for me at that time because it gave me kind of that the beginning mindset again, like how to
Yeah.
build from scratch.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to get enough clients that we hired on a few staff down there. So I still go down like once a month to visit the clients, visit some networking groups that I built some relationships with. But for the most part, account manager, technical staff, they take care of everything down in Southern California. But that was our first foray organically outside of Las Vegas. And it was tough. I mean, it took a lot of work. It was a big strain on myself and my family to be away that much. So from then, we did our first acquisition out of state in 2019, and we've done subsequent acquisitions, 3 more that have allowed us to continue our growth in multiple states. What's been interesting for it is some of the acquisitions have been on the IT side of the business, and some of them have been on the internet side of our business. But the blending of the two together allows us to grow the company and accelerate that growth. But it certainly brings a lot of challenges I didn't expect. Managing teams across multiple time zones, across multiple states. Our location in Missouri is our second largest location. We have over 20 employees there, and it's interesting managing from afar. And I've had to learn a lot about what that leadership is. It's one thing to have like 1 or 2 remote employees, and it's another thing to have whole teams that are working in another state that I can't be everywhere. So relying on managers and our management philosophy to dictate how we do the work everywhere we're at.
What is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is at the point where they're starting to look at acquisitions as one of their growth strategies?
Be prepared for a roller coaster. It's fun. I actually have discovered that I love the that process, that acquisition process, just about as much as anything in the business. I really like, meeting a new business owner, talking to them about their business, understanding how their business works, piecing together how we can integrate the work together and how we can grow what they built, what I built into a new entity. So it's super fun, but it is a lot of work. And, the due diligence that's required is extensive. And I've learned over the years, holes that I've had in the due diligence process through the acquisition. And we, as with everything, we have a very clear documented process on how to do it. We have tons of spreadsheets and documentation on how to do this acquisition process, but it still breaks down. I mean, there's still holes, but really, a lot of it comes down to do the businesses, core vision, the way they work, do they align or are they distinctly different? Is the personality of the person you're buying the business from align with yours? Can you get along with that person? There's a lot of questions around, does the person you're acquiring stay on or do they leave? Both have challenges, and we've done it both ways. But I would recommend, starting small. I really appreciated those first couple that we did that were smaller, that allowed us to understand what that process looks like. And, there's a lot of opportunity out there for growth through merger and acquisition. And there's choices for both. Also, I'd say have a good team. What's been invaluable for us is our legal team and our tax team that's really helped us put agreements in place that make sense for everybody. And a lot of we've actually had deals fall apart because of agreements. We couldn't get to an agreement on it. And the seller wanted something very different. And really you can have all these nice talks, but until you start getting into the purchase agreements and what those look like, that's when the deal really gets real, because there's pen in the paper, and there's a lot of things. Oh, I thought it was going to happen this way, and the other party says, no, it's going to happen this way, until you get that laid out in the documentation, you don't know that. So there, I know that TMT has done a lot of like mini series and discussions about it. And I'd say check those out because it really is a fun process, but very difficult too. It's going to challenge you in ways that you never expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, one question that I always kind of, like to ask at the end, besides things like, top line, bottom line revenue, number of clients, number of employees, what else defines success for you?
I pride myself in having a lot of fun too. So
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's I have fun. We say in our business it's high level adult play that we do inside the company. We try to have fun inside the business, and it gives me an opportunity to enjoy things outside the business too. So I've developed a lot of hobbies over the years, from being a private pilot to a triathlete, to backpacker. One of the biggest challenges for me was 7 years ago. I took a 2-week backpacking trip where I was completely off the grid. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have any technology. I was in backcountry and nobody could get a hold of me for 2 weeks, and it scared the crap out of my team and out of me. That nobody could call me. And it was a very interesting thing because everybody was asking me, okay, what about this? All the knowledge I had that may not be documented somewhere.
Yeah.
They were asking me about it, and I survived, the team survived, and their company was much better for it. But I think as you grow, you have to detach yourself as a leader more and more from the day to day. And it's really challenging. But that gives, me time to have fun outside of the business too, and spend time with family, spend time with myself, my wife, all these things. It's just an essential part of the work that we do.
Yeah, I forget which book it is, but Mike Michalowicz has a book recently, and he'll be mad at me that I can't remember the name of it. I'm looking to see if it's back there, but his whole challenge is, you need to set it up, set up your business to where you can take a month off and your business survives. And it's the scariest thing ever the first time you do it. And you start small, at like a week, and then like 2 weeks, but then a month. And it's like every time you come back and you realize, oh, everybody was just fine without me. We set up the business to where, it can still continue on. Now, it's not like you should just leave the business, but, set it up to where it's not dependent on just one person, you.
Yeah. And I think the issue that we have as entrepreneurs is we're very excited about our business. It's our baby. But if we are involved with every piece of the business, we are the limiter of the company. Mm-hmm. And until you can, as an owner, I'd say you and me as an owner, to back away from every aspect of the business and hire those team members that are better at things than we are, that's when true growth happens. So, and
when you get to have fun.
Yes, when we get to have fun.
Well, Nathan, this has been amazing. I love that we got to talk, about, the first million, but then also kind of get a sneak peek into acquisitions and get some advice for some of our larger MSPs out there. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being here. I'm sure I'll see you again at an upcoming event, soon, old friend, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, Allison, for having me on. And if anybody wants to connect with me, feel free. I'm sure you guys will put it in the show notes and how to get a hold of me. But happy to make any connections and help anybody in the community with their growth.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nathan. All right. We'll talk soon.